if I'm helping them create the sponsorship proposal from the beginning of, time, and they haven't done anything yet, then it really is about a year in advance, just to get that in motion. Then you've got to start creating your whole strategy of getting sponsorships. The communication piece, if I was just coming in to create like sponsorship communication, that I'd want to do within about.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Alex. Alex, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So give everybody the highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
Alex Durant. I started my company, Durant Consulting, back in 2005 as a way to do auction management and production back in Miami. And it has morphed over the years. And now I do sponsor management for mostly wine and food festivals across the country.
Fun. So how did it morph into sponsorship programs?
I'd say, one of my first auction clients was the South Beach Wine and Food Festival that hired me. And I was doing everything, solicitation and setting up the bid sheets, back in the day when we had actual paper bid sheets, bringing in the staffing and all of that. And then I was doing many, many other charity galas and golf tournaments in Miami. Well, 2 years later, my husband was transferred back to New York City, which was the same year the New York City Wine and Food Festival started. So I said to, the founder, hey, obviously I can do the auction for you in New York as well. But now that we've moved, I'm giving up a ton of my clients in Miami. It just doesn't make sense to fly to do a silent auction at a charity gala. So is there anything else in the festival that I can be involved with to take on more work? And they said, sure. Would you like to be the chef manager and deal with all the restaurants? I said, heck no, I'm married to a chef. I know what a bunch of, what's they can be. And then they said, well, how about being an exhibitor manager? And I was like, aren't those all the people with 6-foot tables? That doesn't sound fun. They said, how about a sponsor manager? All the big sponsors coming in that are building out footprints. And I said, that sounds perfect, because those are also some of the ones that I can ask for donations for our auction. It was like a perfect tie-in. And I knew the timeline of like the online auction would be pretty much complete by the time the festival started. So it was easy to do both roles. And after doing that the first year, which was like 17 years ago, I said, what have I been doing with these auctions that are always, with grumpy clients yelling at checkout? It's just a lot of work. I love doing the sponsor management. I said, actually, this is what I want to do in South Beach from now on. And they were like, you don't want to be the auction manager anymore? And I said, no. So they said, as long as you train your replacement, we'll let you step away from the auction department and you can be a sponsor manager in South Beach as well. And then after that, it just started to grow. And I've done other festivals, and I still have South Beach and New York City Wine and Food Festival as my main clients for sponsor management that I do each year. So it's
that's
really
awesome.
exciting. Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. Especially after 17 years.
Exactly.
That's some longevity right there. Exactly. That's awesome. So what is it about, do you think, that it's about sponsorship that people get so freaked out about, and they would rather, pull all their teeth out without anesthetic than go and do their sponsorship?
Well, I think a lot of, the large sponsors coming in to do a festival, it's a big undertaking. So it's not just like at a conference where you have a 6-foot table and a logo on a sign. I have sponsors that are coming in and they're told, you have a 20 by 20 piece of space at this event. You have a 10 by 10 footprint at this event. You have a 10 by 20 at this footprint. And then you're going to give your products away at 18 of the other events during the festival. So it's a lot of organization. It's a lot of communication that's involved, and it's a big undertaking. They not only are paying their sponsorship fee, but then they're also needing to budget for the cost to activate at the event, and the staffing and the travel expenses and buying additional tickets to schmooze VIP guests. So it's just such a big undertaking, and to manage that on the festival side, as a sponsor manager, I'm the one that's saying, well, what are you going to do in that 20 by 20 booth? Are you serving cocktails? Are you giving out your product? Are you taking, data and doing a photo activation? Do you need power? Do you need internet? Who are your rental bars coming from? Are you bringing in flowers? Who are all those vendors? And then I'm passing that information on to all of the event producers so that they know what's going to happen when they come on site. Then I'm also working with the marketing team to figure out, what content have we promised them, the sponsor? What do I need to get? When is it due? When is it going to be posted? The ticketing team, when are we shipping their tickets? The credential team, how many credentials do they get? What are the names of the staff? Who's going to pick them up? So it's just all these little pieces, but I am like type A queen and I love organization. So I have a fan way to track every little piece that
I
to me
love it.
makes sense.
Well, and so many people need you and don't realize that they need you, because I can't tell you, like, the one thing, like you mentioned, is, are you going to be bringing alcohol and serving drinks there? And if you don't know that, I mean, you could have the whole festival shut down
Right.
if the right channels aren't addressed up front.
Right.
Like, and people just don't recognize the ramifications of this lack of knowledge.
Well, and I also love working with like first time sponsors that haven't really done this big festival. I do a lot of, like I said, wine and food festivals. And they'll say, we have a 10 by 10 footprint. We're thinking of bringing in like a table. We're going to put a tablecloth on it and set it up. And I'm like, let me help you. Let me paint a picture. Think about the fact that 5,000 people are going to be visiting your booth. Like, let's bring it upscale. And then I introduce them to, some of our preferred vendors and explain to them you could rent a bar and put your logo on the front of it. And that's a much better way to serve your beverage than to just have a wrinkled old tablecloth on a 6-foot table. So it's fun to see it come to life and then them really understand the power of the sponsorship and what it can do for their company or their brand.
Oh, nice. And I love that, because I also think that so many of them are like, oh, well, we'll just buy a booth and we'll just, or we'll just pay for the sponsorship and, leads will come to us. It's like,
Right.
well,
Yeah, it's like, how
doesn't
are you
quite work like
showing
that.
up? If you're going to spend the money to pay for the sponsorship, and then, like I said, you're buying a booth, you're bringing either a bar, you're setting it up, but then, like, how is your staff showing up? Are they wearing branded uniforms? Are they, engaging with the consumers? Are you giving out any little giveaways? Does it have your logo on it? Do they know how to contact you? Like, all those little details, like, how can you amplify that sponsorship? And then are you posting about it? Are you really engaging with your social media channels to say, like, we're so excited, we're sponsoring this event, we hope we'll see you there. Post about it, share it, like it, be really energetic with the event that you're sponsoring, because then they'll hopefully reciprocate that love back to you.
Nice. I love it. So do you do any consulting or work with companies that are thinking about, joining a, whether it's a festival or a conference or something that maybe they haven't been a part of before, and they're like, or they have been and they've lost a ton of money, and going, there's got to be a better way to do this because other people are making money at it.
I've done a little bit of that recently. A brand reached out to me that I had worked with at a festival, and they said, like, can we just have a little one-on-one consulting? We've got a few proposals that we're looking at for different events. There's pros and cons to each. We'd love to just get your opinion because you've been in this festival space for so long, and I know their brand from working with them. And I said, sure, let's get on a call. And then we talked it through. But generally, I am working more with the event side and helping them on that, like creating sponsorship proposals or creating their sponsorship communication documents. And then, of course, being a sponsor manager to take on all the contracted sponsors.
Nice. And I assume that a lot of them will get a hold of you and go, we needed you yesterday, but how
Exactly.
long in advance would it be kind of ideal for somebody to go, hey, we're holding a festival, Alex, we need you? Like, is it a year in advance? Is it 2 years in advance?
If I'm helping them create the sponsorship proposal from the beginning of, time, and they haven't done anything yet, then it really is about a year in advance, just to get that in motion, then you've got to start creating your whole strategy of getting sponsorships. The communication piece, if I was just coming in to create like sponsorship communication, that I'd want to do within about 9 months to a year, because as those sponsors are contracted and finalized, you want to be able to immediately have the documents and the communication to send out to them, so they already feel at ease and they feel like everything's under control. They're going to get the information they need. As a sponsor manager, I usually start 4 to 6 months. So with dealing with the sponsors, really to zoning in on like their activation plans and giving all the documents that they need.
Nice.
Having
Do you
bi-weekly
find
calls.
yeah, do you find that there's a difference between different kinds of festivals, or is it kind of they all start to have a similarity to them and at least some predictability to what's going on? Or
Well, I'd say even with all events, you've a festival, a wine and food festival, or a music festival, or a conference, a couple 2-day conference. I actually worked for some medical conferences during COVID when all the events were canceled. They're also having to send out information to their sponsors. They've bought exhibit booths in the exhibit hall. Some of them have bought, sessions that they're kind of bonus presentations per se, to promote their product or service. They still need that advanced communication. Obviously, it ramps up when you get a month or two out, and that's when they're really like, we need to know, we want to know what's going on. But I think the earlier you can start it, and it all follows the same suit. Like the more you can communicate out, the more you can be transparent with what your event is all about, the better it's going to be for your sponsors and for their success.
well, and I know sometimes companies will put out like a a weekend event, but it's not necessarily what they would call a festival, or they do it annually, then they start to call it a festival. What are some of the different ways that people can hold these events, and should people be looking at doing something for their business if it's a fit, or is it usually just companies that their job is hosting a music festival, or their job is to
I feel like I'm seeing a lot lately, even coaches, and executive leaders, coaches are hosting their own workshops and retreats. It's building their brand, it's building their sphere of influence, if you will. And so I feel like anyone can have an event. Obviously, you're seeing charity events, galas, golf tournaments, there's festivals, there's community events. Events are all around us. It's just who's putting it on? Is it to benefit a certain particular organization, or is it a singular, leader that's putting it on to raise awareness for their own skills and their company? Or is it a small grassroots organization putting on? Everyone puts on events, I feel like. Whether you need to tap into sponsors or not, you really have to look at your event, what I call through a sponsorship lens, to see what do you have to sell, what assets, whether it's space at your event for people to have a table or a larger setup, or do you have opportunities for sponsors to speak at your event, like at the medical conference example, or at a networking type event. Is there an opportunity for a keynote to come in, welcome the crowd, and give a speech like that fits in with that demographic that you're hosting the event for? Or do you have, a really great database where you're sending out emails and you have social media, and can sponsors be tied into all those marketing assets? So there's all different places that sponsors can slot in. You just have to identify which makes the most sense for the type of event that you're hosting.
Nice. Well, and my brain goes, well, is there anybody that it wouldn't make sense to have sponsorship for your event? Because I'm thinking everybody should
Right,
have
right,
sponsorship for their
right.
event. Like, why wouldn't you? And
Exactly.
if you can't figure out how to do it, that's one thing. But the whole idea of having an event without sponsors, to me, almost doesn't make sense. Like, why would you?
Right. At a minimum, if you're hosting a workshop, could you get the snack breaks sponsored, even if it's just with in-kind donations? It's going to be budget relieving for you. Or, does someone want to sponsor the cocktail hour and just have their name on presented by so and so for, the opening reception. So there's all these little ways to do it. It's just finding, that right fit, and then finding the sponsor that makes the most sense to plug into that.
So is there any kind of event that is your particular favorite kind of event that you're like, oh yeah, when these guys come to me, it's awesome?
I love the wine and food festivals, because once you're there, you walk in the entrance and it's free food and drinks for the rest of the night. It's not like concessions where you have to pay for all like a music festival, you have to pay for the concessions, the food and beverage at each station. At a wine and food festival, once you're in, everything is free and free flowing. It's a lot of fun.
They are a ton of fun. And if you haven't been to one, peeps, go and check one out and then go and figure out how to do that for yourself, because that is a ton of fun. So when it comes to working with you, say somebody's got an idea and they're like, I think this would be better off with sponsorship, but I don't know. How does that conversation start with you, and how do you help them across the rainbow?
I worked with someone recently who's hosting like a fitness event. And it was tied to a nonprofit. So it had a mission, and she did one. And then she came to me and she said, I want to do another one this year, but I also want to make it do 2 or 3 a year. I think I need to work on my sponsorship proposal. And I said, okay, well, let me send me what you have. So I reviewed that. And then before we got on a one-on-one consulting call, I'd already created all different ideas of like, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this being sponsored? Have you thought of this being sponsored? So then we got on, I talked her through kind of my whole philosophy of that, sponsorship lens, and also, brand alignment, what sponsors make sense, what are in alignment with your event and your mission. So we talked through all of that. And then I have a worksheet that I work off of that then I tailor to each client. And we clicked through it. She hadn't thought about workout mats being branded. She hadn't thought about, water bottles that could be given out to every guest that could have a company's logo on them. And then everyone would be drinking from them during the workout class. Like, then we just came up with all these ideas back and forth. I sent her the worksheet where everything had been plugged in. She worked on her proposal, and then she comes back and we just have a review and some final edits and tweaks. And then you're walking away with like an actionable sponsorship deck that you can send out to get sponsors.
I love it. So you mentioned alignment, and I kind of take that for granted, but I don't think everybody does. They're like, no, we just need lots of money to be able to put this on. How important is it to you to have sponsors that are in alignment with the event and the business?
1,000%. The importance is a 10 out of 10. One of my favorite stories is I was working with the wine sponsor for a fancy dinner, and tickets were about $350 per person. So they had flown in a fancy, chef that created all these courses. My wine sponsor had paired each course. The guests came in during the reception. They had a sparkling wine that my sponsor had picked out, past hors d'oeuvres. Then after cocktail hour, all the guests were escorted into the formal dining room, tables beautifully set, crystal glasses, plates, menu on top of the table. You knew exactly what you're going to have. And then next to each place setting was a bag of potato chips, because the festival had been offered a sponsorship by that potato chip company, and they had accepted it because they couldn't say no to the money. But that is awful. Like, it totally diminished this beautiful dining experience. Like, had that been a box of chocolates or something high end, that would have made more sense. So that's just one example of like, don't just take anything that comes your way. It really has to be in alignment with what your beliefs and your mission and your event goals.
Well, and it could have been an opportunity for, say it was Lay's, to go and do like a white bag with glitter on it and go, hey, we got our new fancy salt and pepper, whatever.
Right.
Just like anything, just anything.
Or as a
just
festival,
not.
as a wine and food festival that has like 100 events over 4 days, why didn't we just pick a different event that was like a barbecue event or chicken and waffles? And here's your bag of potato chips. Like it did not
Right?
need to be the 5-star, course
Oh,
dinner. That it was
yeah.
just, wah, wah.
Uh, I'm sure you can pair some wine with chips, but not at that event.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
not the best. So.
Oh, that breaks my heart. And you've given us a great Cinderella story, but I'm gonna ask you for an even better one. But before I do that, we're gonna take a quick break.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.
So I am super excited to hear about another Cinderella story of one of your clients.
So this is a funny one because I got an email from two women that I'd worked with and just been in like their Zoom COVID pod, that was like a women in business. We all stuck by each other and championed each other during COVID. So they reached out less than a year ago and they said, "Hey, we know you do sponsor management, sponsorships. We're hosting a women's inventors summit, 2-day summit, 2-day conference. Do you think you could help us get any sponsors?" I said, "Well, I don't really do sponsorship sales, but if you send me your deck, I'm happy to look at it and see if it makes sense for anyone that's kind of in my back pocket and I can make a referral." They said, "Oh, you're not the first person to say that we need a sponsorship deck." And I said, "Well, how do you think you're going to get sponsors? They don't just fall from the sky." So I said, "All right, send me your website. Come on, we're doing this right now." So they sent me the website for the conference. We had a 30-minute call. I came up with all their sponsorship tiers and levels and deliverables, and I'm just making it up based on what I know about them and what I read on the website. And I sent it to them, and they came back, and their first draft had like 25 tiers of sponsorship. So instead of like gold, silver, bronze, it was gold, silver, bronze, platinum, blue, green, yellow, red. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's pare this down. So then I looked at like which ones kind of were in sync with some of the other ones. And I put those together and merged these with that and added this and added some deliverables to this one and benefits to that one. And I sent them back a quick, redlined version. Here we go. And they turned it around. They made it into a beautiful proposal. And they told me that they got like $10,000 sponsors based on that sponsorship deck afterwards. And their summit was only 6 weeks away from when they contacted me. So talk about spur of the moment and like down to the nitty gritty on timing. And they still landed some sponsors. So I was really proud of them and like really excited to get to help them.
Nice. I love it. And
Yep.
peeps, that is not permission to wait until 6 weeks in front of an event to
No,
go and talk
please
to her.
don't call
Talk to
me.
her now. Get it out there.
Yeah.
And I can totally see a whole course building out in your future for
Right.
people who need that, because
Yep.
do not do that again on half an hour.
No.
6 weeks notice. That's crazy. I love it. So those of you who are planning and have a budget and actually want to use Alex to the best of her abilities, how do they get started with you?
I'm a phone call away, an email, a soup can, telephone line, carrier pigeon. Kidding, but I do have an easy opt-in to get into my email database. But it's also going to be a freebie for you, which is 10 questions to ask yourself before you draft your sponsorship proposal. So it goes through some of those things we touched on, like brand alignment and your sponsorship real estate, just thinking through, holistically before you put pen to paper on creating that sponsorship proposal.
I love it. We will, of course, have all of Alex's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, click on the links, open up in a new browser because we're not done yet. So, Alex, I get to ask you, at what point in life did you know you were a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
At age 12, I said I'm moving to New York City to be a professional dancer. At age 22, I got on an airplane with 2 suitcases to become a professional waitress. And then I started my business career and have kept going ever since. And I go with my gut and follow my instincts and keep on hustling every day.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so fun. So exciting. I love those stories. You've been absolutely awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
No, it's been such a pleasure to be on the show with you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate you. I know how valuable your time is. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being on the show too. We love having you here. Be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends. We love helping entrepreneurs grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.